Welcome to the Think Forward podcast, where we speak with futurists, innovators, and big thinkers. Come along with your host, Steve Fisher, and explore the future together.
Welcome back to Foundations in Foresight, a Think Forward series. I'm Steve Fisher. Today, we're diving into the exploring phase of the Spectrum Foresight Method, a structured approach to navigating the future with clarity and strategic intent. If you've been following along, we've introduced super shifts, the transform model, and laid the groundwork for understanding foresight beyond simple predictions. Now we're going deeper into how we explore the unknown, the first critical step in applying spectrum foresight. This is the phase where we cast a wide net, collect signals, and begin mapping the potential trajectories of change. If you've ever wondered how futurists go from scattered information to meaningful insights, this is where it all starts. So let's dive in. The exploring phase of spectrum foresight is all about discovery. It's where we suspend judgment, gather information from diverse sources, and let patterns emerge naturally. This is not about making conclusions just yet. It's about unearthing possibilities before filtering them down. Think of it like an archaeologist at a dig site. You don't start by looking for a specific artifact. You dig, you sift, and only after collecting enough fragments do you start piecing the story together.
At its core, the exploring phase is guided by three principles.
1. Expanding awareness. We train ourselves to recognize weak signals, emerging trends, and disruptive forces before they become mainstream. 2. Divergent thinking. We look beyond the obvious and challenge conventional wisdom. 3. Systemic observation. We examine patterns of change across interconnected domains rather than isolating them. So how do we do this in practice? Let's break it down.
Step 1. Scanning for signals of change. The exploring phase begins with environmental scanning, a structured way of identifying early signs of future developments. This means looking at signals that could indicate shifts in technology, society, economics, environment, and politics. Steep framework.
A few key sources where we find signals include startups and emerging businesses, what new ideas are being commercialized,
Academic and research papers. What is being studied today that could be mainstream tomorrow? Cultural and behavioral shifts. What trends are emerging in how people think, act, and engage with the world? Technology prototypes and patents. What innovations are on the horizon?
policy discussions and regulations. What rules are changing that could influence the future?
The goal here is breadth, not depth, yet. We are gathering as much potential intelligence as possible before we start making connections.
Step 2. Mapping patterns and trends. Once we've collected raw signals, the next step is looking for patterns. One signal alone doesn't tell us much, but when multiple signals start pointing in the same direction, that's when we know something is happening. For example,
a single article about AI replacing jobs is just one data point. A wave of investment in AI automation companies paired with policy discussions on universal basic income and worker protests over automation, that's a pattern.
Now, zoom out. What adjacent industries might be impacted? What social ripple effects could emerge?
Futurists often use sense-making models like
trend clusters, grouping similar signals together to see if a broader trend is forming. Cross-impact analysis, examining how different trends might influence each other. Weak signal amplification, identifying fringe ideas that might seem unimportant now, but could gain traction in unexpected ways. Step 3. Identifying emerging opportunities and threats. After mapping patterns, we start exploring scenarios, thinking through what might happen if these trends evolve further. This is where opportunities and threats start to emerge. For example, if AI-driven medical diagnostics become dominant, does this create a world where healthcare is faster, cheaper, and more accessible? Or does it eliminate the need for human doctors, leading to a crisis in medical employment?
If space tourism becomes affordable, does this create new economic frontiers? Or does it exacerbate climate concerns over rocket emissions?
The exploring phase is about asking the right questions, not making conclusions, just opening up possibilities.
A great exercise here is the what-if method. What if X technology becomes mainstream?
What if Y political shift accelerates?
What if Z industry collapses?
What unexpected domino effects might occur? Step 4. Sense checking and refinement.
By this point, we have a lot of raw material. Now it's time to refine.
Here's where we start filtering out what's relevant and what's noise. Which signals have the most momentum? Which trends align with bigger macro forces? Which assumptions are we making that might be flawed? Are we missing perspectives from outside our usual lens?
This is where we narrow down the field, preparing for the next step in Spectrum Foresight trademark, the designing phase where we start crafting future scenarios and strategic responses. Final thoughts. The exploring phase is where futures work really starts. It's about seeing what others miss, spotting patterns of change, and mapping out emerging possibilities.
And remember, this isn't just for professional futurists. Anyone can develop this skill. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a strategist, or just someone who wants to make better decisions about the future, learning how to scan, map, and anticipate change is invaluable.
So here's your challenge for today. Take 10 minutes to look for one weak signal of change in your industry or an area you're interested in.
Where did you find it? What bigger trends might it connect to?
What if questions can you ask about it?
The more you practice, the sharper your foresight will become. In our next episode, we'll move into the designing phase, where we start shaping future scenarios based on everything we've explored today. Until then, keep scanning, keep questioning, and as always, think forward. As we conclude today's episode, remember, the Spectrum Foresight Method isn't about predicting one single future. It's about preparing your organization or yourself to thrive across multiple potential futures, turning uncertainty into strategic advantage. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, keep exploring possibilities, remain flexible, and as always, think forward.
Thanks for listening to the Think Forward podcast. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms and at www.thinkforwardshow.com, as well as on YouTube under Think Forward Show. See you next time.